books and magic, and this kind of recommended some books and some titles and some people you should study. There is one book that I have come into possession recently of that I'd heard of in the past, but a Portuguese friend had really got me interested in it, and I ended up ordering it. Now, the book is the great book of Saint Cyprian or Saint Cyprian. This is the sort of the ultimate book of black magic in Portuguese and Brazilian occult circles. And I've just finished reading it, and let me first talk about this book. This is the English language translation by the Hadean Press. Now, firstly, I would recommend that you don't buy this book. Not because I think you're stupid, but because this is not for amateurs. This is not, like, even in the Portuguese speaking world, even having possession of this book brings demons into your life. It brings the devil into your life if you can't handle it. The actual reading of the text can, even just a simple reading of it, if a person is psychically, shall we say, fragile, emotionally damaged, and especially if they have addictions issues, they smoke a lot of weed or they drink a lot of alcohol, they could actually, according to the Billy, get down, go away, good boy. That's my cat Billy. He wants to learn all about black magic. The text itself is rather interesting. It invoked, well, Saint Cyprian or Saint Cyprian was basically an Antioch, and he was murdered along with Justina, along with that was when during the Crusades, and he was beheaded. He was beheaded, and basically for writing this grimoire to the devil. Now, when I first started reading it, I was like, well, I've read much deeper books than this on the topic, and that they have been much more, shall we say, intense. This was very, first of all, it's a Christian orientated text, in the sense that, I know this is going to sound strange to people, but by invoking the power of Christian angels and Christian archetypes, because they're so powerfully structured with the Western psychic tradition, that they can be used to charge other entities into this reality. It's sort of like a bait and switch idea of the occult, of ritual magic. Now, immediately when I started reading this book, it was almost like one of these synchronistic moments. Saint Cyprian directly comes along and tells you that magic comes from the Druids, and I was like, I leaped when I read that, because my upcoming book will be about the Druids described from a magical point of view, as the Druids were not only, in my belief, the ground zero of both the Western European magic tradition, but also quite possibly the Western idea of Christianity and religion in general. And the Druids play a much bigger part in the development of the magical and spiritual traditions of Western Europe and Europe as a whole than they've been given credit for. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they don't want credit for it. They disappeared into the Christian world. So who knows if Saint Cyprian came into contact with the hidden Druids within Christianity, which came out of the ones that came out of Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and England, and moved into the Christian world. Now, as I said, don't buy this book if you're anyway, easily frightened, easily controlled, easily manipulated, easily suggestible. If you're the type of person where the stage musician says, "Can I have a volunteer from the audience?" If you're the type of person that does that, then this book is not for you. Also, don't buy second hands of the book, copies of the book. Now, this is basically a compilation of the editor's best, shall we say, sources for the original book. It's like many other religious and magical texts. It's been written and translated, retranslated, fallen apart. Sections have been lost, new things put in. He tried his best to bring it back to the editor tried his best to bring it back to the original text. it makes the point that ultimately it doesn't matter really anyway, because of the meat is in there, and it deals with lots of things, and it has it basically it's not a lot different than many grimoires I've read, except that it's so powerfully Christian in terms of its delivery, again, which I found surprising, but I also know why it's that way. So this book is not for you, really, and I wouldn't say, I would suggest that only buy it. I mean, I don't get I don't get a terrifying energy off this, but I've only read it superficially the first time. I'm going to go back into a sort of an in-depth reading next week and the week after, and I'm going to create my own footnotes and start looking at comparative ideas to really get to the meat of it. But from what I can tell, it seems it's quite easy reading, and a lot of the spells would be kind of like almost infantile, how to make someone fall in love with you and stuff like that. Now it gets into the deeper stuff, like some of the things in here to do with animals would make animal lovers go crazy, and that's part of magic. That's it's all about creating a stream of energy, and that's another reason I don't encourage these kinds of books, because they can fall into the hands of sick and disturbed people who think they have to do things like raise doves and pluck their wing feathers off and use the wing feathers of the dove in order to create talismans and spells and stuff like that. There's enough idiots out there who would do that kind of thing. Remember, you can create a psychic charge in numerous ways, but the same reason I tell people to stay away from sex magic is the same reason I tell people to stay away from these kinds of books, because most people out there are just morons, and this is why I don't want a mass awakening. I don't want the masses to wake up. I don't want the fuckers who watch X Factor and so on to wake up. The same token, I don't want people who are infantile about their own psyche reading books like this. They're better off studying, spend many years studying mythology and things like that, and studying, things like Jungian psychology and the work of Joseph Campbell. They'd do better things that way, and I wouldn't even be against the idea of them following something like Deepak Chopra. Now, I know people laugh at the idea, but I have to say, I was looking over some of his books from 20 years ago, and they stand up quite well from a kind of a development of the psyche type of way. So maybe that's where you belong. But these kinds of things, it's like everything else. Leave it to the ones who have a long experience with this kind of thing. So there you go. I have in my possession what's considered the most dangerous book in the Portuguese and Spanish speaking world. The most dangerous, a book that just by having it brings the devil into your life. Just by having it unleashes demons. Just by reading it can invoke demons, even if you're just casually reading it. And again, is that true or not? Well, I haven't had that experience. But then again, I'm very, I've been doing this since I was about 14. God, maybe even younger, reading these books. So I'm par for the course. But someone who would jump in at the shall we say the deep end, probably would be damaged by them in some way. Even if they just imagined it or something like that, or even if they just started getting paranoid, having strange dreams. And you will, just by reading the text of these books, your dreams do become very different. So there you go, the most forbidden book in the Portuguese and Spanish speaking world of the occult and magic. And I will continue to study and make back reports on you to this in relation to some other Freemasonic texts, very valuable and very forbidden Freemasonic texts I've managed to get my hands into. I'm going to take you think, forget the rabbit hole, I'm going to take you to the centre of the earth.